Well, hello there and welcome back to America's Funniest Handyman, where today I'm going to teach you guys how to install a newel post. I'm going to teach you how to install a newel post so that it's nice and strong and solid as before you even attach your handrail or your balusters, because a strong and sturdy newel post is the key to a great balustrade installation. And I'm giving you 3 for the price of 1 today, because I'm not just going to teach you how to install 1 newel post, I'm going to teach you how to install 3 newel posts. And the reason that I'm teaching you guys how to install 3 different newel posts is so that by the time you're done with this video, you have a good understanding of the fact that every single newel post that you install is going to be slightly different. They all require different cuts, different engineering, and different ways of getting them either into the floor or a solid installation above the floor. The bottom line is, if you want your final installation to look like this and to feel like this, you've got to start with a really strong and straight newel post. Okay, let's get familiar with the tools that you're going to have if you want to do an installation like this. Of course, as always, I have a nice assortment of hand tools, squares, hammers, pry bars, chisels, stuff like that in my toolbox. Shims, you're going to definitely need some shims. I recommend wearing some knee pads while you're down on the floor working, because if you're going to be on the floor for a little while, you might as well make yourself comfortable. One tool that you definitely cannot go without on a job like this is a reciprocating saw with several different nice sharp blades to get through the floor. You're going to need a circular saw with a nice sharp blade. You're going to need a jigsaw with a nice sharp blade. And I recommend always having an extra blade or 2 on hand in case you run into a nail or something like that while you're digging into the floor. You're also going to need a drill and an impact driver. Incidentally, if you're not really familiar with an impact driver, here's a video right here to show you the difference between a drill and a driver and why you want to have both tools with you at all times. You're also going to want a nice assortment of all the different sizes of drill bits. You're going to want several different impact driver bits, and I have a well-organized tray of trim head screws here, because whenever I'm doing handrail and newel posts, the fastener that I use the most are different size trim head screws. If you can take a quick look at this, sorry for choking the chicken in front of you, but these screws right here are called trim head screws. They're made by a company called GRK, and they are awesome! They're just awesome screws. So get yourself all the different sizes, get them nice and organized in the tray so that you can use different sizes exactly when you want to use them, and you don't have to spend a bunch of time looking around. I'll tell you what, not only do I love doing this type of carpentry, I love teaching you guys how to do it too. So if you're enjoying the instruction that you're getting at America's Funniest Handyman and you like some of the humor that I give you along the way, then please do me a favor. Press the subscribe button, but most important, turn on the notification symbol so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. This year, I'm going to be releasing a ton of videos. I'm going to be bringing you guys onto my own job sites like this one, and I'm going to be teaching you advanced carpentry skills, beginning carpentry skills, as well as a whole bunch of other cool stuff around the house like basic electrical and plumbing stuff. So please turn on your notifications, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Okay, I got the camera flipped around so that you can see where I'm going to be installing this first newel post, the one down at the bottom of the stairs, which is big and strong, and it's going to be kind of standing all by itself, not really tied into much. There's going to be a handrail going from here to the wall, but my biggest challenge is I need to get this newel post into this hole where there used to be a newel post, and it was removed long before I got here. So I didn't have anything to do with this job or this renovation until just now. So I'm showing up fresh, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to get that bad boy in here and make the handrail up, or make the handrail at a good height, which is going to be a little bit higher. Okay, here we are at newel post number 2, which is going to go here at the top of the stairs. This one is obviously going to need to get cut down a little bit because our handrail height is about 36 inches, which is going to be down here. So I'm going to be taking a lot off of this newel post in order to make it happen. And you can see in the background that we have this other newel post right here. Ooh, don't fall back, Tommy. The stairs are right there behind me. So I'm going to be careful. Here's the third newel post. Kind of gets attached to the wall. So that's going to be an interesting one. So those are the 3 newel posts that we're going to be installing today. Okay, so this is a 2-piece newel post that's going to go right here. Unfortunately, this section, which is a sleeve, as you can see, this is a sleeve. This sleeve is not tall enough to come above here. The molding would actually come slightly below here, so I'm going to use a 1 3/4 inch piece of oak at the bottom to give it a little bit of a step up. I would like it to be different, but in order to make this installation work, without doing that, we would have had to custom order a newel post that was, you know, significantly taller than this one, and it would have cost a small fortune. So we're gonna make this work in the situation that we have. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut out this extra material, and I'm gonna make this sleeve fit right in there, all the way down to that level right there. And I'm gonna special cut this little piece of oak to be like a step at the bottom. And this piece is gonna sit inside here, but it's actually gonna have to come up 10 inches so that the handrail will be 36 inches from the top of the step. It's a lot of work to put in this one newel post, but once we're done, it's gonna look nice. So that's my plan. Hopefully it didn't take too long to explain it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and make these cuts. Okay, here we are at the top of the stairs. This newel post is actually gonna end up shorter so that the handrail comes into that area, and the handrail ends up at about 36 inches where the top of it is. But before I start cutting into this and modifying the newel post, what I'm gonna do, this sleeve comes up and down. This sleeve will come up and over afterwards. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dig into this floor here, and I'm gonna sink this post as far down inside the floor as I possibly can, because if I can get this post up against the side of a joist or something like that, even if I have to take out a little bit of the newel post in order to do so, it's gonna make it super strong, because if I was just to try and screw it to the floor, you would end up with quite a bit of wobble. So by the time I'm done sinking this thing down into the floor, it's gonna be a super strong installation before we even attach our handrail. So I'm gonna bring the camera in closer and show you how I actually dig into the floor with a multi-tool to make it happen.
Maybe you can't tell a joke, but when your stuff gets broke, what do? You give Tommy a call, whether it's large or small. There's no project he can't see through. Let's laugh and learn from this handyman, with Kitty hold this by his side, fixing stuff in a serious way with a not so serious guy.
Alrighty then, now that we're down through the finished floor and the subfloor, let's take a quick look and see what kind of space we have to work with. Okay, I'm going to do my best to show you guys how this all comes together, knowing that once I'm done showing you this, I'm going to be installing these newel posts mostly down low with a combination of these 3 size trim head screws. These are called trim head screws because they have a really small head. I'm going to be using a combination of 5-inch, 4-inch, and 3-inch trim head screws. And I want to show you how I get my newel posts down below the floor when necessary. In this case, it's a freestanding newel post that's going to have one handrail attached to it at the top of the stairs, so we need it to be as solid as possible. There we go. This is the sleeve that comes up and down. This is the end of my newel post. I'm going to move the camera so that you can see why I cut it this way. That's what I have to work with. This is a joist, and this is a joist. So I have a little bit of open space here. And if you want to take a real good look at what I've done, you can see that I have left a little bit of wood on the end of this joist so that this, which is nice and solid, I mean it is oak, once I send it on down there and screw everything together, just even that little bit is going to help the whole thing be nice and solid. Once again, there we go. Boom. All right, let's move on to the next newel post. I'll show you what I'm doing with this one down here. This one is the other end from the one I just showed you. And I'm not going to go into the floor because I've taken some notches out of the backside so that I can fit this right up against the corner, like so. And because it's so nice and solid, I'm going to use those 5-inch trim head screws. I'm going to countersink them at different angles into the dark heartwood, coming right into the beam that's back here, and by the time this one's finished, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be solid as heck because it's pushed up against the building and then it's pulled up against the building by those trim head screws. And because those screws are so small at the head, it'll be easy for me to come back when I'm all finished. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to touch up those holes. All right, let's go down and look at the bottom one, which is a big one. Now this newel post in particular was very challenging to engineer and figure out because originally the top of the newel post was about here. And in order for my handrail to be 36 inches from the top of the landing, which is here, I needed to get a wood stretcher and make this thing longer or come up with a way to engineer it that would work. So what I did was I came up with a way to make this part of the newel post taller. And I think I told you guys earlier that I came up with a decent way of making this sleeve sit a little bit higher so that this molding is above this plane. So as you can see, I made the newel post taller with some creative engineering. I'll show you in detail in just a second, but you can see how it all comes together just like so. Now, in order to get those newel posts in the way that they're in down below the floor, in order to make those cuts, you're going to have to do some experimentation, but you're definitely going to have to use a combination of 3 different or 4 different saws in order to make these cuts happen and come together. Now I'm going to show you the bottom of this newel post. So what I did is I inserted a piece of post about 7 inches long, halfway up into this part of the post, halfway sticking out of this part of the post, and then I made this little box and attached that to the inner part of it. And as you can see, I was very careful to keep it all fairly flush and inside. It didn't have to be perfect or gorgeous because once it goes down inside here, it disappears. But that enables me to make this post between this guy and this guy down at the bottom, that enables me to make this whole post 9.5 inches taller, which is what I needed to get the handrail in. And the reason that we designed it that way is because there was an old Newel post here a long time ago. And even though this is a bit of a weird way to do it and a little bit hokey, it was a lot less expensive for the homeowner than rebuilding the entire staircase to accommodate a handrail that came over and down a couple of inches on an angle. So not an ideal situation, but in my world, when I'm working for customers, and in your world, when you're working on your house, you don't always have an ideal situation to work with. So if you stop and you back off for a minute and you wrap your head around it and you try to be creative with your engineering and your carpentry, you could come up with some pretty creative ways to get around some seemingly impossible or very difficult situations. And by the way, if you have trouble with patience and working on stuff like this, you might want to check out this video right here where I help you learn how to have patience for the do-it-yourself process. Okay, so now, as I said, I'm going to be using a combination of 3, 4, and 5-inch trim head screws strategically placed at different angles to install all of this work. And then when I'm finished, we'll take a look and see what it looks like, and I'll point out where my screws are. Okay, thank you. Okay, this one's a little bit tricky, but I do want to point out that anytime I'm doing work like this, I always use a really long 1/8 inch drill bit because it gives me the view that I want so that I can see exactly where I'm pointing my drill bit. Shorter drill bits make it difficult to differentiate where the drill bit is actually going to end up. So I want to know where it's going, and I want to be able to get a pre-drill for a nice long screw like this, all right? In this case, this sleeve comes up. So before I put the sleeve down, I hold the sleeve up, I stick a shim up in there so it stays up, then I can put whatever fasteners I want at different opposing angles down into the joists, into the floorboards, all sorts of stuff that I can do in there before I lower the sleeve, because the sleeve is going to cover everything. Now the sleeve comes down, and this is already nice and fastened because we know it goes down into the floor, and I fasten the sleeve, which helps hold it a little bit more, but really it's mostly the post itself that's doing that. So now that I lower the sleeve, I place a couple of different screws at different angles. In this case, I've got one here and I've got one here, and they're coming at a fairly kind of sharp angle that goes across and grabs this post and floor joist. And the same thing here. I've got one that's coming in and it's coming across through the sleeve into the post and down into one of the floor joists. And now this thing is super solid.
Swing the hammer, turn the screw, cut the saw and stick the glue, shave the shim, clamp the vise, cut once, measure twice. Drill the hole and fill the hole, put the thingy in the hole. Be sure you're having fun, measure twice, cut once.
Okay, this particular Newel post came out so sweet and solid. I want to show you what I did here. So, you saw the way that I engineered it. So, on this particular post, I did not have the luxury of putting a whole bunch of fasteners in before I lowered the sleeve. The sleeve had to go in beforehand. So, I've got a couple of nice fat 4-inch screws coming in at this angle right here. I've got several different, I've got another couple of 4-inch screws that come across this direction that go through the sleeve and through the post. And then down here, as you can see, it's hard for you to see, but I've got a screw coming in at this sharp angle. I've got it. And now down here at this angle, it's hard for you to see, but I've got one coming across, a 4-incher coming right through here. I've got a big fat 5-incher coming through the side of this stair, because I've got to do something with this stair to make it look nice. So this is all going to disappear. I've also got some fasteners down inside this little shelf that I created, and I've got another screw coming in at this angle. Okay, that does it for our new post installation. I hope that you got a lot out of this. Please leave some stuff in the comments if you think that there's some things that I didn't cover that you would like to see. I try to keep my videos short, and there's a ton of other stuff that I could have put into this video. So, thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I'll see you on the next one, especially if you turn on your notification bell so that you know every time that I release a new video. As always, thanks for letting me bring a whole lot of experience and a little bit of humor onto your job site.